Welcome also to our colleagues who are watching us on live streaming. My name is Robert Palladino. I am in the Office of the Executive Secretariat, and I'm honored to be your moderator today for today's event, which will be hosted by Secretary Blinken and the U.S. Special Advisor on International Disability Rights, Sara Minkara. Today, we'll feature remarks. We will hear discussion on the role of disability and inclusion in foreign policy, and the Secretary and Special Advisor Minkara will be launching an internal playbook for the department colleagues that outlines guidance and how to integrate disability perspective into all of our diplomatic work. The playbook, which was developed by Special Advisor Minkara and her team in partnership with Embassy Lima, is currently available online on our department SharePoint site if you'd like to take a look. The beginning of this event will be live streamed and on the record, and that will conclude with the Secretary's departure. This event will have both American Sign Language interpretation and capturing for our in-person and virtual colleagues. And we're hoping to make this an organic, interactive conversation, and anyone that knows Sara Minkara personally knows she brings energy, and she is hoping that all of you will be willing to shout out questions when she encourages you to do so. So please don't be shy. And for our virtual colleagues, you are welcome to submit comments. You have the website, the email address, sateroffice@state.gov, and I'll be moderating today's session. Because I've had the opportunity to work with Sara for some time now. And if anyone who's met her knows, the first time I met her, she asked me an important question. She asked me who I was outside of work. That kind of question kind of gets to the heart of what Sara does. And it was a great way to connect on a personal level before we actually dove into getting things done. And she explained to me how people with disabilities make the best diplomats, and how their disabilities create opportunities for the United States in ways that we don't always imagine. And shortly after that, she asked me another hard question, and that was, what are we doing for persons with disabilities in Ukraine? And I didn't have a good answer immediately, but I took away from that the importance to which she attaches to this work and how much work we have to do. So, those who know Sater and her team know she thinks big, and they're always looking for places to insert disability rights into our diplomatic work. So you're going to hear lots of examples during this program today.
Recording in progress.
And I would hope that everything from economic development and digital inclusion and multilateral engagement to AI and others. You can take some of these examples back to the work that you're doing in the field and here at the department. So now I'd like to turn it over and ask for the Secretary's counselor to come up to the stage, Tom Sullivan. Tom would like to share some remarks. Please, Mr. Sullivan.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Robert. I have been given the great honor of introducing Sara Minkara, who certainly does not need an introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. As Robert noted, she has dedicated her life to empowering those with disabilities worldwide. But since 2021, when President Biden appointed her to serve as our highest level diplomat on international disability rights, she's led the U.S. comprehensive strategy to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities internationally. And that really is at the heart of what we do at the State Department, advancing not just the interests, but also the values of the American people, and disability rights encompass both of those. Through her tireless leadership here at the department and her travel across the globe, Sara has elevated and integrated disability inclusion and disability diplomacy into our foreign policy. And those of us who are fortunate enough to consider Sara a colleague and a friend will know that she considers herself an entrepreneur at heart. And it's not just by bringing together everyone for events like this or for the launch of the playbook, but it's how she's mobilized us and challenged us to collectively incorporate disability throughout our policy responses on some of the biggest challenges that we face. So whether it's identifying disability rights as a potential area of common ground in our relationship with China, whether it's ensuring that disability needs are part of the Ukraine recovery and resilience efforts, or elevating our partnerships with ASEAN, the C5, and throughout the Indo-Pacific. Sara has also forged new opportunities, and it's her work to eliminate systemic barriers and gaps in our own work that continue to drive us through the playbook today. So our department, our foreign policy, and our nation are stronger and better as a result of our work. So please join me in welcoming Sara Minkara to the stage.
Hello? Yes. Okay, great. Can I give you this? Wait, actually, no, hold on. Okay, yeah, you can take it. Okay, good morning, everyone. Okay, great, awesome. Can everyone snap for me? Great, okay. Okay, very, very good. Okay, so first, here's what we're going to do. I just want to first, huge thanks. Robert, thank you so much for agreeing to moderate this session for us. He's coming out of his vacation to do this. Seriously, huge thanks. A huge round of applause for Robert. And then also thank you so much, Tom, for doing this. I know also, how busy you are, and thank you for that kind introductions. I really appreciate it. So a huge round of applause for Tom as well. Okay, so to frame this conversation, because I can't read a script, I'm going to give you the outline. So please help me remember my speech. So here's the outline. First, I'm going to ask you the question, what do we hope to get out of this next hour? Second, I'm going to do gratitude and appreciation. Third, I'm going to talk about what is the current state of disability. Fourth, I'm going to talk about what has been our approach to addressing disability inclusion. Then I'm going to talk about building capacity in a playbook. Then finally, next steps, homework, what are we going to take forward? I always like to, have actions and homework, okay? So if I forget one of those sections, please forgive me. If I forget saying thank you to someone, please forgive me. I'm trying to remember everyone's names, but they're in my heart, okay? Promise me. You will, don't take it. Okay, so, and then also, as Robert said, the next hour, I want you to be your authentic self. I want you to really just share your voice, your perspective. Don't hold back. We're here to really make true change, and change will only happen when we have difficult conversations, okay? You promise me? Yes, great. Okay, so my first question to you all before I dive into my speech is, what do we hope to get out of this next hour? And what do we hope to give one another? And we're going to do this within 1 minute. What do we hope to get out of this next hour? Just shout it out. I'll repeat it for the virtual audience. What do we hope to get out of the next hour? Dialogue. I love it. What else? Action. Conclusion. What else? Awareness. Learning. Integration. Inspiration. Advancement. Common cause and what? Yeah. Common cause. Yep. Higher standard. Ooh, yes, definitely. Let's push on the boundaries. What else? Disrupt the narrative. What? Understanding. What? Action. Community. What do we hope to give one another? Love. I love that. Love, yeah. Teamwork. Empathy. Solidarity, you said? Someone said support. Good idea. Hope. Resources. Hope. I got no resources, but yeah, let's definitely mobilize resources. Accountability, yes, I like that. Accountability. Vision. Access, okay. Working horizontally, okay, I like that. So those are some thoughts and too many more. But let me first say, I also want to give appreciation. This work that we have done and we are still going to continue to doing wouldn't have happened without many important people, okay? First, a huge thanks to the Secretary and to the team to allowing us to really bring in disability in different spaces, like the London Ukraine Recovery Conference, the ASEAN Leadership Summit, C5+1, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. When you are able to bring disability into those spaces through leadership, it makes a difference. So huge thanks. So round of applause for the Secretary and his team for that. I also want to appreciate our leadership in this room, our colleagues in this room, our friends in this room and beyond, our embassies, and I can't thank enough all of our embassies, ambassadors, ECMs, sections, officers. We've been to 48 countries so far. There's too many to thank, but huge, huge thanks. The work that we've done together means a lot. That's number 2. Number 3 is, and this is the most important to me personally, is I want to thank our team. So I'm going to have them come up here because, to be honest, this team is the one that's doing the work. Not me, them. So let's bring them up. First, Hannah Nasri, Special Assistant. Indra Cillier, Chief of Staff. Sara Sabah, Accommodation Specialist. Megan Clohassi, Communication Specialist. Maddie Lancaster, OMS. Heather Fuentes, Policy Advisor. Robin Truman, Senior Advisor. Susie, a Policy Advisor from FCC. And then virtually, Christy Detowing with us from Brussels, Senior Policy Advisor, and Laura, who's detailing from us from CA in Denver. Did I miss anyone? No. Okay. This team, and I want to be very clear, this team is why we're here. This team resembles strength, feistiness, passion, commitment. Please don't tell us no, because we'll find another way. We like to push on the system, but we are also kind. We love our work too much sometimes. And to be honest, we're also creative, scrappy, and entrepreneurial. Again, no resources, so what are we going to do? So we find ways to partner and really mobilize this work. This team is why we're here. So huge, huge, huge thank you to this team. And then beyond this team and our families. Each of us, and we can all speak really closely to our family. Really, our families are the ones that brought us to where we are, and I can speak to all of us. Me personally, my mom and dad, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my parents. So huge thanks to the family. What? Oh, I'm moving? Okay. 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 Oh, am I? Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, now, on to the next. Sorry, I don't even know. Okay, so I'm this way is the, okay, got it. So, and Hannah, just keep me on time, okay? Okay, so, but what's the reality right now on disability? And I want us to really have this difficult conversation. In traveling the world, there's still these 3 common narratives I see. Number 1, the world likes to call us, we are the vulnerable population. We're not vulnerable because we're disabled. We're vulnerable because the system and society is not accessible to us and does not think about us. Does that make sense? We're not vulnerable because we're disabled. We're vulnerable because we are an invisible population, or it's not accessible to us and we're left behind. And to be honest, in many situations, especially in crisis, we feel like we're an acceptable loss. Let's really reflect on why vulnerability exists. That's number 1. Number 2, okay, then society says, you want us to fix? What ends up happening is society will turn to us and say, let's fix you, instead of actually fixing the system. I've had a conversation with a leadership from a country where this person turns to me and says, my dream is for you for someday, for you not to be blind, for us to find a cure for your blindness. And I turned to this person, I told him, I hope someday you can create a world where I can exist as a blind person with no barriers. Where we can create a world where people with disabilities can exist with no barriers. Who work on the system? I'm proud to be blind. We're proud to be disabled. Then that takes me to the 3rd layer, which is, okay, you want us to fix the system? Special needs, special accommodations. This is a special things, or it's costly. Whenever someone turns to me and says, Sara, you have special needs, I turn to that person and I say, you're sighted, you need light. In my perspective, you have special needs. I don't need light. It's all about the framing, but why don't we also understand when you don't include us or make the system accessible, it's going to be costly later on. It's going to be, we become a burden on society, and you're not tapping into the GDP that we can be contributing up to 7%, I think it's more than that, or tapping into our innovation. Why do we still see disability as an add-on, as an afterthought, as a special thing, as a costly thing? We need to reframe this conversation. But because these three narratives still exist in our society, what ends up happening, it influences our policymakers, our programmers, our program designers, our employers, etc. So let's take the policy, because this is what we're here to talk about, policy and foreign policy. Those narratives will influence our policy where it leads to what? Emergency planning that's not inclusive and accessible of disability. AI and technology that's being developed that's not accessible to the disability community. Climate solutions not accessible to the disability community. Trade agreements are being built without having disability provisions. Digital economic framework policies are being developed without having disability accessibility. On and on and on. We're always left out of those conversations. And this is why we are here. How have we done it? And there's so much still work to be done. So here's our formula. Number one, we need to constantly create a space to have authentic and difficult conversation to reframe how we look at disability. That's really important. I'll give you an example. When I travel to countries and I first have a meeting with the embassy and the country team, the modified country meetings, I turned and I said, please don't brief me yet. I have a question for you. Tell me about your top 3 priorities and tell me how you think disability fits into those 3 priorities. Don't tell me about this specific disability. No, tell me about how you think disability fits in your 3 priorities. Let's reframe the conversation. Number 2, target spaces, individuals, conferences, and dialogues that are not thinking about disability. That's been our team's approach. Let's look at spaces that are not thinking about us. Peace and security, trade, digital economy, and on and on. But how do we get into those spaces? It's through allyships and partnerships. As I mentioned, through the allyship and partnership with the Secretary and his team, through the leadership in this building, our colleagues and our embassies and beyond. Our partners have been the embassies all over the world, where they facilitated conversations with ministers of like trade and investment and digital economy, where I've had conversations with those individuals and they keep telling me, in my 30 years, I've never thought of disability. That's important for us to reflect on. I hear this on a daily basis. I've never thought of disability in my work. So find partners to open those doors, then let's take it and insert, mainstream, and institutionalize disability. But I don't want technical fixes to an adaptive problem. Countries will turn to me and say, Sara, we're so proud, we have an amazing quota law for employment. And then I said, do you think that quota law is addressing the multiple barriers that people with disabilities face in education, infrastructure, AI, in applying, accommodations, reasonable accommodations, narrative? No. So let's not just look at technical fixes to an adaptive problem. And let's truly bring then all the different stakeholders to this situation. And that takes me to the next point, shared responsibility. It shouldn't be just on the shoulders of the disability office or community. Every single stakeholder internally and also externally needs to be part of this. Externally, the private sector, the investment sector, the media, the entertainment, every single sector needs to be part of this change. And then that takes me to building capacity and why this playbook is super important. I've had so many colleagues say, we're so interested in this, but how do we do it? And this is why, in partnership with Embassy Lima, with Ambassador Kenna, her team, Stacy, my team, especially Christy, we developed this playbook for embassies to really understand how disability is cross-cutting across every single section within embassy, including the ambassador, DCM, and beyond. And I do want to thank Eric Garcetti, who he did a pilot test run with his embassy. But this playbook is a toolkit for us to carry this work forward for the long run. So please take it forward, but we don't stop here. We're going to have an external version launched on the week of December 3rd for our partners, our diplomatic community. Then next year, we're going to develop a thematic toolkit with this playbook. What do I mean by that? So if you look at G7, G20, APEC, ASEAN, we have all these different dialogue on trade, investment, climate, food insecurity, digital economy, AI. We're going to develop a playbook with our departments across the U.S. government to illustrate how disability is cross-cutting, so then we can take it a step further and our government counterparts can carry this work forward with us. Those are the next steps. But I do want to end with something really important. Andrew and I always talk about how our parents did not settle and accept the status quo. Andrea has, her parents had two disabled daughters, and my sister and I are both blind. So what my parents did and said, we're not going to accept the status quo. We're not going to accept what society is expecting or not expecting of my daughters, but we're going to push on those boundaries and make sure that they truly achieve their potential and be able to be fully integrated in society. Okay? So here's my ask of you. Don't settle. We're done accepting the status quo. Disability needs to be part of all of our work. Right now, there's so much more work to be done. So my ask of you, please, yes, celebrate those disability things that you're doing, right? But what I would rather have you do, look at your work, look at your bureau, look at your embassy, look at your office, do a whole wide analysis and see where disability is not integrated, and please commit to taking this forward. Because it's important to diplomacy, it's important to foreign policy. And it's not enough for you to say, bring a seat up to the table. Let's be honest. A lot of times, the table, the room, it's not physically accessible. It's not accessible communication-wise, technology-wise, narrative-wise. There's a lot of barriers we still need to break down. So let's work together, partner up together, break down barriers so people with disability are at every single table, so we get to the point where we say, nothing without us, nothing without the disability community. Thank you so much, everyone. And
disrupting the narrative, entrepreneurialism, called action-oriented. That is, thank you for that call to action, Sara. At this time, I would now like to invite up someone who's been a leader and an advocate on elevating disability as a priority across the department. Mr. Secretary of State, please come up. We welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so here's a professional tip. Never follow Sara Minkara. It's a little bit like getting on stage after Taylor Swift. Sara, it's not just that I'm proud of you. It's that I'm grateful for you and for your entire team. The work that you've done to create new and different and cross-cutting connections for us in our foreign policy strengthens and elevates our foreign policy. I'm going to speak a little bit to that in a few minutes, but I think one of the best things that we've done in this administration is to unleash Sara and her team on the world. And as Sara said a few moments ago, the only word that's really not in her vocabulary is the word no. And this team has always found a way to get to the destination. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. Robert, to you, thank you for the introduction, but also thank you for the exceptional leadership as our special advisor on international, Sara, to you, Special Advisor on International Disability Rights. Robert, I'm glad we got you back. You snuck out, but we got you back for the day. So, around the world, we have about 1.3 billion people with a disability. That's about 16% of the global population. People with disabilities are affected by every issue facing our countries today, whether that's adapting to climate change, whether it's growing our economies, whether it's resolving conflicts, whether it's shaping the rules and norms of emerging technology. And yet, we know across the globe, people with disabilities are all too often excluded from critical conversations. And you heard Sara speak to that very eloquently a few moments ago. More than half of people with disabilities live in areas that are affected by mass conflict, yet only about 6% of the peace agreements that have been reached actually reference people with disabilities. 80% of people with disabilities live in countries that are at the greatest risk from the effects of climate change. Yet, only about 8% of disaster preparedness plans worldwide explicitly address the needs of people with disabilities, including making evacuation plans accessible. So we have a responsibility, all of us, to deliver for all of our people. Not some of them, not certain groups, all of our people. And that's in part because everyone's safety, everyone's security, everyone's prosperity is deeply connected, and I would argue more connected than ever before. History shows us that equitable societies tend to be more stable, more resilient, more innovative. So, when our policies exclude those with disabilities, they actually fail all of us. But when we incorporate the needs, the insights of people with disabilities, we all benefit from their talents, from their expertise, from their leadership. Our first special advisor on international disability rights, Judy Heumann, was an incredibly powerful advocate for these issues. I remember very, very powerfully being with Judy and being with a delegation from the People's Republic of China. The meeting that we had here at the department, and this is back in, I think, 2015, 2016, was remarkably powerful in connecting our countries and connecting our communities in different ways. And Judy had an exceptional ability to do that. She once said, and I quote, "I believe that my life has demonstrated that the lives of so many other disabled people, all of us, that our contributions are strengthening our communities every day." And that remains the case today. For example, here in the United States, people with disabilities accounted for nearly 30% of the growth of our labor force between 2021 and 2023, boosting our competitiveness, powering economic growth for our whole country. That's why we made it a priority to incorporate disability inclusion and perspectives into every aspect of our foreign policy. We're making the State Department itself more accessible, in part by moving the Foreign Service application process fully online. That means that candidates don't have to travel here to Washington, D.C. for an interview. We brought on a sign language interpreter for our press briefings, so journalists and viewers who are deaf or hard of hearing can join these policy conversations. We're also making the bidding process for senior positions, including deputy assistant secretaries, more equitable, more transparent, to build a pipeline for leaders with disabilities. Now, having said all that, we still have a lot more work to do to address the systemic barriers that exist for diplomats with disabilities, and Sara alluded to that as well. At the same time, we're also putting disability rights at the heart of our strategies, our policies, our diplomacy. As we stand with Ukraine against Russia's war of aggression, we're working to address the needs of the disability community by improving access to medical care, including helping provide prosthetics for people who've lost limbs. We're also working together to support Ukraine as it rebuilds, in part by sharing best practices for community and independent living facilities. Now, you heard Robert say this a little while ago. Sara's the one who asked the question, how are we thinking about this conflict in Ukraine, this aggression by Russia in Ukraine, in terms of the needs and the insights and involvement of the disabled community? And it's by asking that question and getting us to focus on it that we've actually made progress and made a difference. To build greater economic growth, we're joining efforts to create more equitable opportunities. In Kenya, for example, we're working with Coca-Cola to provide skills training and professional networks for women retailers with disabilities. That way, they can negotiate better deals from selling Coca-Cola products and growing their own businesses. To build stronger, more inclusive democracies, the United States supported a program in Sri Lanka that developed new signs in sign language for words related to elections and voting. The initiative then taught them to election officials, sign language interpreters, members of the deaf community. Previously, Sri Lankans who were deaf or hard of hearing could run into communications barriers at polling sites. With these new terms, they have more opportunities to fully participate in the electoral process. We're also integrating disability rights at international organizations so we can put our collective power behind these issues. At the G7, Sara contributed to the creation of the very first ministerial on inclusion and disability. Last year, we held the first ever U.S.-ASEAN Disability Dialogue. With the C5+1, our summit with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Sara put disability rights on our agenda. We're making progress. But to keep up the momentum, integrating disability rights needs to be part of everyone's job, because these issues touch on every bureau and every portfolio here at the department. And that's at the heart of what really brings us together today. Thanks to Sara's team, thanks to our embassy in Peru, formerly led by Ambassador Lisa Kenna, we now have a playbook that shows our employees how they can incorporate disability issues into their own work. And I looked through this playbook last night. It's a remarkable piece of work. And just as a practical guide, incredibly helpful. And I really commend it to all of you, to all of your offices and bureaus. The playbook offers recommendations for every foreign policy topic and every section of our embassies. These suggestions are straightforward. They're scalable. They're standardized, based on experience and lessons learned from the field. So, to everyone at State, take a look at this playbook and look for ways that you can do your part. Brainstorm with colleagues. Reach out to the Special Advisor's Office if you encounter challenges along the way. Make use of resources like our Office of Civil Rights, our Diversity and Inclusion team, or your Bureau's DEIA advisors. If we continue to make disability issues a priority, if we do it across the department, we can do so much more to deliver for all our people, to build stronger, more vibrant societies for people everywhere. And again, I come back to this because I've seen it in action, to connect in new and different ways with countries that we're seeking to build stronger partnerships with, stronger allyships with. That's why this is so important to our foreign policy. It's a powerful tool for us. And Sara, to you, to your team, thank you for the extraordinary work. But there's more work to be done, and I know you're going to be doing it. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your remarks. Your participation today is a loud message to the world that disability inclusion is a central tenet to U.S. foreign policy. And of course, we can always expand on this work as long as we remember that disability inclusion is not operating parallel and that we make it integral to what we're doing. And at this point, this also concludes the live stream portion of our events. So I'd like to encourage our members of the media to depart at this time. For the remainder of the program will be off the record. Thank you.